This came from, was this Newsweek?
Newsweek, yeah.
It says, telling gay and lesbian teens, quote, it'll get better, doesn't help them cope with stress. It may make things worse. And so I read this article, and, there was that, for quite some time, there were a lot of videos done of it gets better, it gets better. And
I think they were to benefit the Trevor
Project.
which is a wonderful
organization.
Line.
But, I'll read the line so I say it correctly. But they're saying telling teenagers who are struggling with the stress of being lesbian, gay, or bisexual that everything will get better does not help them and instead can make things worse, a study has found. Coping with sexual orientation can be a huge source of stress and anxiety for adolescents. A New York-based gay, lesbian, straight education network found that 80% of LGBT students between 13 and 21 had been verbally harassed, 40% had been physically harassed, and 60% said they felt unsafe. And they said that this coping mechanism, which was the prevailing technique, which was, I guess they call it a cognitive strategy, where it says trying to imagine a better future for themselves. But how well it works and how well the method works is not known. It reminded me a little bit of the power of positive thinking. Right?
Try, believe, do. Well, the study looked at three main coping techniques: cognitive strategies that will get better, alternative seeking strategies, which would be a student asking to move to a new school or finding new friends, and LGBT-specific strategies where they get involved with LGBT organizations. The best coping strategy was the third, where teens actively engage in activities, organizations, and resources targeted to the LGBT community. This group was found to have better psychological adjustment and more likely to graduate from high school. In comparison, the other two strategies were associated with a lower likelihood of finishing school, lower self-esteem, poor adjustment, and more symptoms of depression. I think that when you and I talked about this at lunch, the bandwagon, boy, did that train bail out of the station. I think it might have been the unfortunate, the suicide of that young man who jumped off the George Washington Bridge, and suddenly Trevor was flooded with interest, and then people and it was so easy for us. I don't want to poo-poo it, but it was so easy for someone to record it. It gets better, and so now you have, I don't know how many thousands of minutes of It Gets Better, but what is that, from a tactical point of view, how do you actually implement It Gets Better into your life?
Well, it's telling people, hang in there and take the abuse or take the verbal.
Hang in there.
Yeah, and you're right. And I thought what was interesting about this, even taking this to the workplace, if you as a kid in high school or college could see that whether there was a LGBT affirming club at your school, whether it was high school or college, or other people that you could relate to, and or at work when they have these employee resource groups that let other LGBT employees know that you're not alone, it's very helpful. I mean, I myself went through quite a struggle in college. My GPA went from a 3.8 to a 1.2 one semester. I still remember to this day, these three guys probably don't even pay attention to it, but I was, I don't want to say trapped, but I was in a hallway and about ready to get the crap beat out of me. And this one kid, Kelt Naylor from Vermont, Dave Schultz, who I still am in contact with from Ohio, and this other kid, Jim from Kentucky, three farm boys walking down the hallway and see me about ready to get the crap kicked out of me. And they were all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6".
Iowa Fed, corn, yeah.
It came over and literally just picked these guys off me and just tossed them. And, what are you doing messing with him? Leave him alone. And I, to this day, still remember that. It had such an impact on me that those guys were...
They intervened in a
were intervening in such a positive way. And none of them are gay. It was just that they were just good guys. And but for somebody like me who was struggling with my sexuality, and I moved it over into sports, where I think gays and lesbians who play sports try harder to be better or overcompensate for your masculinity or your femininity. And I had a score in rowing. I still remember this. It was questioned. I was questioned all the way through that I couldn't possibly have such a high score in the ERG to make it into the varsity boat, and was tested over and over again.
On that rowing machine, the ERG.
And I kept proving myself that I could do it. But it was, I think, it was the early 80s, but had I had a place to go or somebody to talk to, I think it would have been good for me. Now, whether I would have gone and talked, I don't know.
The article concludes by saying that the community-based, that third option of finding a club or a community, everybody needs community, everybody needs support, and it's really important, particularly in adolescence. It just reminds me that, that first strategy of it gets better, that requires a lot of, it's Norman Vincent Peale, right? It's that positivity thing that you got to have on 10 or 11 all the time.
It's going to go away.
And that is a hard thing to maintain in the face of, you and I were pretty fortunate in where we grew up, I think, being on the East Coast, in a smaller school system. I didn't really encounter too many. I don't have a memory of any problems either through high school.
You didn't have any in college?
Through college, certainly not college. I don't remember college at all. In fact, college, well, I dated girls in college. That was fine by me. So Bob never wants me to talk about that. But
Get laid?
yeah.
Wow. Who knew?
I'll just say that was delightful because it's all made to work that way. So anyway, but I remember one girl I fooled around with. She's like, so-and-so thinks you're gay. That's not possible. I'm like, well, who's that picture? Is that your brother there on the nightstand?
You could have got married and had some Nash babies.
Could have had Nash babies, yeah.
And going out for milk for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Honey, I'm going out for milk.
So anyway, that was... but I think everybody's situation is different, and I think had I been in a different school or something, I don't know. I just had a group of friends that no one was even thinking about that. It was all about watching MTV. Who's got the weed? Are we going to do this movie tonight? Are we playing a drinking game? The other stuff was so.
So you were on a very different track. I was the rowing team in fraternity, so it was hyper
masculine.
Yeah. The beer drinking boys, frat boys. So, but I guess we turned out okay.
We did, and we landed on our feet, and it did get better, even though we we just poo-pooed that.